want some sauce?
Scene 1, Apple, take 1.
What's up, everybody? In this video I'm going to be making actually a couple of things, and I'm probably going to turn this into two separate videos, but I'm going to end up making a chicken stock / chicken broth, and that's going to be for one video. And I'm also going to end up making chicken fundido, which is not chicken fundido because that's chicken ass. We're going to be chicken fundido, and this is basically just a chicken chimichanga with a really killer cheese sauce. So what we're going to do is we're going to get a large pot, and this is going to be used for cooking the chicken as well as making the stock and all that other good stuff. So this will be step one. What we're going to do is I have some chicken breast halves of the breasts, or whatever you want to call them, and I'm going to be using these because I got these really cheap. I ended up getting 4 of these for like $4. If I were to just buy the breast, it would have been like $14. That doesn't make any sense. Any other types of bones or meat that you might have, you can go ahead and throw inside here. Yesterday I had made something from the menu of the Titanic, and so I'm going to use this to add even more flavor. This is going to end up being good for both the broth and the fundido. And then that's his bay leaf. This is just a little bit of salt. Don't really need to add anything else. If you want to, though, you can. If you want to add black pepper, you can at this point. I'm going to do it later. Now, the reason why I'm not going to be adding a lot of spices or anything to this at this point is because I'm going to be using this both as a broth for another dish a little bit later, as well as I'm going to be making the chicken fondue. So what I'm going to do is maybe near the end of this, the boiling, when everything's about right, I'm going to separate it into 2 portions. I'm going to take the broth out, use that for the soup, and then I'm going to be using a lot of the chicken for the chicken fundido. There's a lot of bay leaves in that bunch, wasn't there? Let's remove some of that. I don't need that many. But now we're just going to go ahead and let this boil, come to a boil. After this comes to a boil, I'm going to lower the temperature down to where it kind of stays at a simmer, and put a lid on it. You can put a lid on it now if you want to. But let's go ahead and let's get this up to temperature. Okay, so this has been simmering, boiling, all that other good stuff for probably a good 2 hours. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the meat out, run it, you can just strain it, run it through a colander. I'm going to keep that and put it in a different bowl and use that on a different time. And then this chicken, I'm going to let it cool down. And one of them I'm going to save for the soup, and then the rest I'm going to end up tearing apart after it cools down. And then from there I can go ahead and start making my filling for the chicken fundido. The difference between a broth and a stock is broth generally has vegetables and meat in it. Running it through a colander will ensure that no bones or anything get into the broth. Now we're going to end up making the filling that goes with the chicken, and I'm purposely doing this separate because, like I said, some of the chicken I'm going to end up using for soup, and some of them I'm going to use for this. So if you're just going to end up making this, you can just mix this in with the chicken and not worry about it. But anyway, man, I can't. Oh my God, I can't fucking open my eyes.
Are you crying?
I'm not crying, I'm being maced. Oh my God.
Sure.
I feel like I have tear gas in my eyes. That thing's rough. So that's probably enough onion. And then I've got a jalapeno here. And some people will wear gloves and stuff for this. I really don't see the need. They'll also say remove the seeds if you don't want it to be hot, and it's not really the seeds, it's around the membrane. It's where all the capsaicin is. I'm going to scrape a little bit of seeds out of here because I'm going to try to plant them in my garden. One of the things about jalapenos, you never really know exactly how hot it is. Sometimes you get them and it's like eating a green bell pepper, and then other times you get them and it's like eating frickin' fire. You can also get poblanos if you want to. Sometimes I just refer to these as green chilies. But these generally aren't very hot. But same thing, I'm going to take some of them seeds out of here. One of the best ways to tell if these things are too spicy is you just grab some and I think that was jalapeno I just put in my mouth. And generally I'll use regular bell peppers, but I couldn't find any good ones, so I just ended up getting some frozen pepper strips, same thing. So I'm going to be using those. And we're going to heat up a frying pan. Olive oil in here. Onions. Jalapeno. Here's some of the other green peppers that are just boiling hot for some reason. I don't know why. They're usually quite mild. And it's just kind of strange that the jalapeno is the one that's not being very spicy. And I'm also going to be throwing some pepper strips inside here. Something along those lines. A little bit of salt. Black pepper, of course. This is paprika, which is essentially, I always mention this, it's just dried red bell peppers. This is cumin. I'm going to put a hint of this in here. It gives it that earthy, some people will call dirty foot smell, but can't really have Mexican food without it. And this is oregano. This is just regular ground up chili powder. It's not the chili powder that you would get that already has the garlic and the cumin and everything in it. It's just ground up chilies. This is garlic. And I know some of you guys always say, you know, you never talk about how much you put in there. And I'm going to tell you, the reason why I never talk about how much I put in there is because with every recipe it changes a little bit. I think what's important is you just watch and see about the amount. You know, don't really worry about teaspoon and tablespoon and half cup and stuff like that. When it comes to baking, that's more important. But when like you're cooking like this, it's more about how it smells and how it tastes and just like experience and stuff like that. But just kind of looking about how much that I put on is probably really the best way to do it. And after you cook it a few times, you'll know, because when you're tasting it and you're saying, well, does it need any more seasoning, you'll know if you need to add more, you know. Just don't go all gung-ho and be like, I'm going to put a half a cup of paprika in here. You'll probably ruin stuff if you do things like that. But the object of this now is just to let it basically become translucent and soft and just a really nice filling to go with the chicken, because we want this to be cooked all the way through. We're going to end up tasting a little bit. Oh, this smells really good. It's almost like a fajita type of mixture, but we want this to cook for a little while, become translucent, soft. We'll end up taking a taste of it in maybe about 5 minutes and see if it needs any more pepper or salt or paprika or whatever else. And you guys that have been watching my videos for a while, you always know I have to put a little in there for Mateo. So I took a little bite of it, and it tasted like it probably wouldn't hurt to put a little bit more salt in here. So this is actually the kind of like the consistency I'm looking for right here. It's not overcooked or anything. It's got a little bit of bite to it, but it's been softened, and all of those flavors have kind of come together. So this is pretty much done, and I can put this in a bowl, and then I can, after it cools off, I can also end up putting the chicken in there after I pulled it off the bone. And I'm going to take some jasmine rice. You're going to see, once again, I'm not even measuring this. Okay, but I think that's probably enough. Okay. And if you were going to hard press me on that, it's probably almost a half a cup if you're going to hard press me on it. Okay, but the object here is we want to brown this. Okay, so we're going to let this just kind of sit here and brown. And like I said, you can put butter in here if you want to, which would actually end up helping the flavor a little bit more than olive oil, quite honestly. But this is going to work just fine. Let's let that brown up. Now we don't want to burn the rice, we just kind of want to toast it. And you can tell it already looks a little different. Okay, so from here I'm going to end up putting a can of diced tomatoes in here. You can use tomato sauce if you want to. Chicken broth. Generally, when you're making rice, it is a 2-to-1 ratio. So, for whatever you end up putting in there for the rice, you end up putting twice the amount for the liquid. Okay. Ground pepper. Half of an onion. A carrot. And when you're putting things like carrots and stuff in there, this is completely up to you. It's like this is optional. Some people will put corn in it. Some people will put peas and all sorts of stuff. And really there's a lot of different forms of Spanish rice. I mean, if you're Puerto Rican, you're going to make it one way. If you're Mexican, you're going to make it another way. If, you know, lots of different ways to make it. So we're going to kind of like let this stuff do its job. I'm going to put some pepper strips in here too. It starts heating up and breaking down and softening is when I'm going to taste it and see if it needs any type of seasoning to it. Okay, so I had just tasted it and it's really good. I'm going to throw just a little bit of garlic inside here, and man, that's going to send it over the top. You can taste it now to see if it needs any salt. Okay, and if you want to, you could put this in a pot and, you know, put the lid on it and make it almost like a traditional rice, you know. I'm kind of doing this almost like a risotto, okay, and I can tell that it's starting to run out of liquid, so I'm going to end up pouring a little bit more of the chicken broth in there. Because you don't really need to cook rice with a lid every time. I mean, it does help, don't get me wrong. But this is going to work out just fine. What I've done is just every time it looks like it needs a little bit more liquid, I just add some, and I'm keeping the temperature down. But you see that it's coming together, and the rice is pretty much coming to almost its full size. And a lot of this extra liquid is going to dissipate, and we're going to end up having a fairly dry Spanish rice. And just every now and then, just grab a little bit and bite down on it and see if it's got some bite. And even though we didn't put any butter there at the beginning, I'm going to put some now. But you'll see that this rice has lost a lot of its moisture. It's at full size, okay, and it's going to finish cooking this way. It's fine, no lid. I have it on the lowest setting that the stove will go. And here in a second, I'm going to taste it for salt and pepper. This is only going to take about 5 minutes before it ends up sucking up the rest of that moisture or letting it evaporate. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get the cheese sauce ready. And there's a few different ways that people make this. I'm going to show you the way that I'm going to make this particular one. You know, as you know, the thing is with all recipes, really, after you kind of learn the basics of it, after a while you start making it your own way, you know. And there's nothing wrong with that. One of the things that I do is I like putting a very well diced onion in there. Now this is maybe only a quarter of an onion. It's not a lot. This is some of the spicy pepper, so we can get a little bit of spice in that cheese as well. We're going to end up putting a little bit of black ground pepper. Touch of cumin. When I say a touch, I literally mean just barely any. Just a little bit of oregano. That's not even a quarter of a teaspoon, I don't think. I'm just looking for a hint of some spice and herbs. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to let this stuff sweat for a little bit. Another thing that I'm going to end up adding while this is kind of coming up to temperature is just a little bit of paprika. Okay? And the only reason why I'm adding this is to give it a slightly off color instead of it looking like pure white. I want this to not quite look pure white. We want the rawness of both of those items gone, because this is going to end up being part of the cheese sauce. I'm going to be adding a little bit of butter to this, a couple tablespoons. In fact, if you didn't want to use olive oil and you just wanted to start with the butter and the onion and the pepper, you could. Ain't no thing but a chicken wing. If you want to add some bell pepper to this, you can. And it's not going to hurt anything. In fact, it's going to increase the flavor considerably. Now, during the time that this is kind of warming up, this is not on high, this is like on a medium. I've got some cream cheese that I'm bringing to a room temperature, And I also end up having some Longhorn cheddar cheese that I'm going to be using. I'm going to grate it up and put in here. Plus, that Longhorn cheddar is also going to end up going on the inside of the tortilla. So we're going to end up saving some of it for that. And then also we're going to end up putting some sour cream in this near the end. And that's going to end up creating basically our cheese sauce. And you know, you can add other things to that. You know, I have this now set at the lowest setting. So this is all the meat off this chicken breasts, and it just literally just kind of falls apart. Okay, and then that's what happens when you boil it for a long period of time, because this is coming from a chicken breast, so it's pretty dry. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and remember this stuff. We're going to mix the two, and the chicken is going to end up absorbing some of the sauce. Because we were using half breast, you kind of have to be a little careful that there's no rib bones and stuff in this, because sometimes they sneak through. If it's a little too dry, you can always add just a little bit of that broth from the chicken earlier. This is also how I make things like macaroni salad and stuff, potato salad. I just end up doing this. So it's pretty well incorporated. I'm going to be putting a package of cream cheese in here. Some people put more than a package. So let's go ahead and grate some of this inside here. I'm going to save some of this though also for the inside. So I don't want to go too crazy with this. So after this starts to melt, it kind of gets into a consistency similar to this. But we know everything is melted and we know that everything is incorporated. This is when we're going to start adding our sour cream. And you don't want to get the sour cream too hot because it can start separating and getting all nasty and everything like that. I'm basically putting equal part, like whatever the cream cheese was, that's what I'm going to be putting with the sour cream. Now you have to remember, sour cream and cream cheese, essentially you're making the same ingredients as a cheesecake. All you'd have to do is just end up putting in an egg or two, some vanilla and sugar, and then you've got a cheesecake mixture here. Let's put a little bit of parsley flakes in here. The good news is if after you're done tasting it, it doesn't taste quite right and you think it needs more seasoning, you can always use onion powder or garlic powder or whatever. And some of the things I add in here are not traditional. Like you won't see a Mexican put parsley in their cheese sauce. I do it because I like how it adds color to it. Need some ground black pepper in here. Okay, this is really thick, so I'm going to end up adding some more half and half to it to thin it out. Okay, going to let that heat kind of allow that black pepper to kind of permeate in there. Let me grab some half and half. Okay, that consistency I think is a little bit better, and it's going to thicken up a little bit more as it heats up. So I think we're good with the sauce. Let me put some saran wrap over it, and then the only thing we have to do is put it together, then fry it, and then bake it, and we're golden. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get our chimichangas ready, because essentially that's what we're doing really, is we're making a chicken chimichanga with a cheese sauce. And it's definitely better when you have homemade tortillas, but this is going to end up working. It's easy to kind of overfill these guys, okay? But essentially, something like that would be okay. You can put a little bit of the cheese sauce that we made inside here if you want to, but we're going to be putting it on top, so I don't really see the need to do that. But what we want to do is we want to fold this up pretty much like this, and then tightly basically end up making something like this, like a burrito like that. We also want to have a pot that this will fit in, and we only need it to really cover about halfway, okay, because we're going to end up flipping it. If you have a larger pot, that's great, but then you're going to be wasting a lot of oil. So I'm trying to keep it as small as I can. During the time that the oil's been heating up, I went ahead and I took some coriander also known as cilantro here in the Southwest, out of my garden. And even though you can use the stems, generally I find the stems a little bitter, so I'm just going to end up using the leaves. But yeah, some people will call this coriander, and other people will call it cilantro, and they're both right. But generally here in the Southwest, we call coriander the seeds of the cilantro plant. When we first put it in, we want to make sure that we kind of hold it in place, because it's going to want to unwrap and it's going to want to kind of expand, and that's why you want to put the fold on the bottom first. Let that crisp up, then turn it over. So we'll it's going to want to float because of the air that's inside there. And then it's going to want to turn over and open up and all that other stuff, and that is no good. We want this to maintain its shape. We only have to keep this in here long enough for it to brown. Turn it over and let that brown up a little bit more on that other side. That's what I'm saying. That thing it's going to want to expand. It's going to want to unwrap, and that's why it's good sometimes to have two sets of tongs to kind of hold it in place. So that way it doesn't do that. Okay. Maybe just another minute or so on this, just to crisp it up real nice, and then we can take it out and drain it. We have our cheese sauce that we're going to put on it, and the cheese sauce is a little thick right now because it's kind of just been sitting out here. Okay, but we're going to put a little bit of that on here, and now I'm going to put this under the broiler. During the time that it's in the broiler, just keep in mind, you can use this meat. You can see how much we have. I mean, that's just from 3 half chicken things. Like I said, $4 I think I spent for 4 of them, and there was only 3 of them in here. That's a lot. That's enough to feed a family. And you can use this for taquito filling. You can use this for fajitas. You can use this for tacos. You can use this for all sorts of stuff. This is some good stuff. So that is after I had put that under the broiler. And you can let that sit under the broiler even longer in order to get this to maybe like caramelize and puff up and stuff. But we're going to end up putting a little bit of cilantro up on here, like it should be. And we are going to be putting our Spanish rice. Let's just go ahead and take a lime, and what I'm going to do with the lime is I'm going to grab it and I'm going to roll it first. That kind of loosens everything up and it makes it a little bit easier to juice. And there you go, guys. That's chicken fundido. Let's go ahead and get my wife in here to taste this, and she can give us the oohs and the ahs and all that other good stuff. I'm going to put one more thing on here, and that's olives. And then I have another one that's fried up.
Oh.
And there's a lot of meat left, and there's a lot of rice left, and there's a lot of
You mean
cheese.
to tell me you can't have any?
No, because there's onions and garlic and black pepper. But, and be careful around this because this is still very hot.
God, this does look like the casa de pico. The sauce?
Mm-hmm. Mine's better.
I remember that. Is that the first thing I ate when we went there? I can't remember. I know you had it.
Either that or taquitos or something.
Oh.
I don't remember.
No, I know you. When we used to go there, you used to.
That was my favorite. Yeah, that and taquitos.
I think I did try it one time when I went with my friend, one of my coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it wasn't as good. We're like, oh.
Well, it's changed since they moved to Grove Swan Center.
That's where we went. So
when it was in Old Town, it was probably one of the best Mexican restaurants.
Oh yeah. Probably a new cook now, and oh my God. Good. That sauce is good, or cheese sauce.
Mm-hmm.
That crisp on the burritos. That crunch.
Yeah.
Yum. The rice is really good. I like the rice with the veggies. Yum.
The only thing it's missing is a big ass margarita.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's true. That
It was
huge
like
margaritas
in a fish bowl. Yeah.
I used to stir. It's really
Have you been
good.
able to get any of the
Oh
chicken
my god,
yet?
the chicken is yeah, the chicken is so tender. Look how it's just for being white meat, you know, the breast. This is dry. Not dry at all. Really tender. How long did you cook it for? A while?
Couple of hours.
No, that's why. I sound like a pig. I'm all
Everybody sounds like a pig when they're eating.
I'm all like stuffing my face
As
and
long as you
talking.
don't start oinking, we're okay.
Talking with my mouth full of food. That's kind of rude. I'm full. I'm like really, you know, it's weird. I want to eat more, but. Whew.
Anyway, guys, that's that. That is the chicken fundido, at least one of the ways that I make it. But anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you end up clicking like and make sure you hit subscribe and all that other good stuff. Check out my other vids. I got tons of them. Till next time, I'll talk at you later.